Number 10. Scrolling instead of conversing with real people. You ever notice how your thumb moves before your mind even decides? That tiny flick, that automatic swipe, it feels harmless, almost natural, like blinking. But beneath that quiet motion is something far more dangerous, a habit that slowly convinces your brain that digital crowds are safer than real humans. It starts small. You open your phone just for a second, maybe to relax, maybe to check something, and suddenly you're gone, absorbed into an endless stream of strangers, stories, faces, emotions that aren't yours. You stop hearing the person sitting next to you. You stop noticing the silence in your room. You start trading real conversations for curated illusions. Your brain adapts to this. It begins craving the predictable flow of content. No awkward pauses, no emotional depth, no vulnerability, no challenge. Real conversations feel messy by comparison. They require effort, empathy, patience. Scrolling requires nothing. And that's the trap. The less you talk to real people, the harder it becomes to talk at all. Social muscles atrophy the same way physical muscles do. Loneliness grows in the background like mold, slow and silent, until one day you realize you feel disconnected even in a room full of people. Not because they changed, because your brain rewired itself to prefer the safe distance of a screen. If you've ever wondered why conversations feel heavier lately, why eye contact feels tiring, why silence feels threatening, this is why. Your brain is learning that scrolling is easier than connecting, but easier is not better. Easier is how addiction begins. Number 9. Chasing constant likes for validation. There's a strange moment that happens right before you open your phone. So quick you barely notice it. A tiny flicker of discomfort, a whisper of boredom, a spark of restlessness, and instead of facing it, you smother it with a screen. That's the real beginning of the addiction. Not the scroll itself, but the avoidance, the quiet escape, the reflex to flee your own thoughts. Human conversations were once the way we regulated our emotions. We talk to understand ourselves. We talk to feel seen. But scrolling rewires that. It teaches your brain that emotional regulation doesn't need humans anymore. It just needs distraction. Why admit you're lonely when a feed full of noise can silence the feeling? Why reflect on your life when a stranger's life is easier to watch than your own? And here's where the damage deepens. Digital interactions don't ask anything from you. They don't challenge you. They don't correct you. They don't hold you accountable. Real conversations do. When you talk to someone face to face, your brain lights up in ways no screen can replicate. Micro expressions, tone shifts, emotional resonance, the subtle dance of vulnerability. These things shape empathy. They build intuition. They train your brain to understand humans. But the more you scroll, the more you lose these instincts. You become emotionally desensitized. You start mistaking stimulation for connection, noise for companionship, engagement for intimacy. Your brain gets hooked on the illusion of social life without the reality of it. And the scariest part? You don't realize the damage while it's happening. The rewiring is silent, invisible, creeping, until one day you sit across from someone you love and you feel nothing but the urge to check your phone. Because the scroll has replaced the soul. Number 8. Watching short-form videos for quick dopamine. There's a moment we rarely acknowledge, the quiet pause after someone speaks. A breath, a space, a tiny pocket where true connection grows. But most people don't stay there anymore. Their hand twitches, their attention shifts, and the phone becomes a shield they raise without thinking. That shield isn't just blocking distraction, it's blocking intimacy. Scrolling has become a refuge from emotional exposure. Real conversations require presence, uncertainty, and sometimes discomfort. But your phone offers you perfectly controlled worlds, predictable, curated, engineered to keep you safe from the unpredictable nature of human beings. Without realizing it, you begin to prefer that control. The messiness of real interaction feels overwhelming. So your brain gravitates toward the clean simplicity of algorithms. And algorithms never misunderstand you. They never interrupt. They never challenge your beliefs. They feed you exactly what you want, exactly when you want it. Slowly, your tolerance for real people, who are flawed, complex, and inconsistent, drops. This is how scrolling rewires your emotional circuitry. Your brain stops practicing patience, so conversations feel slow. Your brain stops practicing empathy, so people seem dramatic. Your brain stops practicing depth, so everything feels shallow. Your brain stops practicing presence, so moments feel boring. You don't lose your ability to connect all at once. You lose it grain by grain, scroll by scroll. You start choosing digital distance over human closeness. You start avoiding eye contact without knowing why. You start feeling socially drained before the conversation even begins. And eventually, the people around you begin to feel like background noise, while the screen in your hand becomes the main character. Not because you wanted it, but because repetition carved a new pathway into your brain. Scrolling didn't just distract you, it replaced the very skill of being human. Number 7. Over-relying on food delivery apps. There's a strange irony in modern life. We are surrounded by more people than ever, yet we feel more alone than any generation before us. And the loneliest part isn't the silence, It's the substitution. We have replaced voices with visuals, emotions with emojis, presence with pixels. The brain can't tell the difference at first. It still gets stimulation, still gets novelty, still gets the illusion of interaction. But something subtle begins to fracture within you. Scrolling trains your mind to expect connection without effort. Real people don't offer that. Real people have pauses, flaws, contradictions, moods. A conversation may drift in unpredictable directions, forcing your brain to adapt. But a feed is predictable, controllable, engineered for your convenience. And because your brain is always choosing the path of least resistance, it quietly begins to prefer the feed over the face. That preference becomes a pattern, and patterns become pathways, and pathways, when repeated enough, become personality. That's how it starts. Not with an addiction to the phone, but with a loss of tolerance for reality. Over time, your mind stops seeking three-dimensional humans and starts craving two-dimensional stimulation. You feel awkward in real interactions because your brain isn't used to emotional unpredictability anymore. You look for the instant gratification a conversation cannot give. You lose the patience to listen deeply, the curiosity to explore someone's thoughts, the softness required to form genuine bonds. And then, something unsettling emerges. People begin to feel exhausting. Moments begin to feel empty. Life begins to feel quieter than your feed. Not because the world changed, but because scrolling has rewired your sense of connection. You didn't choose loneliness, but your habits practiced it for you. Number 6. Checking notifications mid-task. There's a quiet theft happening in your life. So slow, so subtle, you never notice the moment something precious is taken from you. It happens every time you sit with someone you care about and your eyes drift, not to their face, not to their expression, but to the glowing rectangle in your hand. That tiny shift of attention seems harmless, but it carries a message your brain hears loudly. This screen matters more than the human in front of me. Repeat that message often enough, and your mind begins to believe it. Scrolling doesn't just steal your time, it steals your presence. Presence used to be a gift, something you offered with intention. It meant listening, noticing, responding, feeling. But when your attention is divided, presence becomes fragmented, and fragmented presence is indistinguishable from absence. People feel it, your relationships feel it, your own heart feels it, and slowly, the brain adapts. It begins expecting interactions to be shallow, fast, effortless. Deep conversations become intimidating because they require emotional stamina you haven't practiced in a long time. You find yourself avoiding difficult talks, delaying honest discussions, hiding behind quick texts instead of vulnerable truths. The phone becomes your escape hatch, your emotional shortcut. But shortcuts have consequences. They bypass growth, trust, and understanding. They make you forget the rhythm of real connection, the pauses, the eye contact, the shared silence, the unfiltered emotion. These moments are the nutrients of the mind, the experiences that shape self-worth, confidence, and belonging. When scrolling replaces them, the brain starves. Not of information, there is plenty of that, but of human nourishment. And what starves begins to shrink: your capacity for connection, your patience, your emotional endurance, your ability to simply sit with someone and be fully there. This is how scrolling rewires you. Not by bombarding you with content, but by slowly erasing the space where real life happens. Number 5. Gaming late nights disrupting brain cycles. Some rewiring doesn't feel like destruction. It feels like convenience. That's the dangerous part. Scrolling offers you a world where everything is instantly available. Entertainment, distraction, opinions, faces, drama. A world where nothing slows you down and nothing requires effort. But real people, they require patience. They require attention. They require emotional labor. And slowly, without noticing, your brain begins labeling those requirements as too much. This isn't just a shift in habit, it's a shift in value. When you spend more time with a feed than with a friend, your brain learns that speed is more rewarding than depth, that stimulation is more important than understanding, that control is more satisfying than vulnerability. Real conversations don't unfold with perfect timing. They don't come with instant gratification. They unfold in layers, in breaths, in pauses. But your mind, shaped by endless scrolling, begins to lose its tolerance for anything that doesn't reward you immediately. Eventually, even the people you love start feeling like slow-loading pages. You find yourself zoning out mid-conversation. You nod without listening. You drift mentally, even when you're physically present. The brain, conditioned by constant micro-stimulation, struggles to stay anchored in any moment that doesn't offer the same hit of novelty. Worse, scrolling rewires your sense of emotional risk. In real conversations, you don't get to edit your thoughts. You don't get to filter your emotions. You don't get to hide behind a perfect response. But in the digital world, you do. So when someone asks you how you're actually feeling, your brain panics. It hasn't practiced honesty in a long time. It has practiced distraction. It has practiced escape. And slowly, you lose the courage to be real. That's the final stage of this rewiring, not just avoiding conversation, but avoiding your own truth, because a feed is easier to face than your feelings. Scrolling doesn't just change how you communicate, it changes what you're willing to feel. Number 4. Using substances just to relax, daily. There's a moment you rarely notice, the moment when silence in a room becomes unbearable, not because anything is wrong, but because your brain has forgotten how to sit with stillness. So you reach for your phone, almost automatically, as if silence is a threat you must escape. But here's the twist. That tiny escape is slowly rewriting the architecture of your mind. Scrolling teaches your brain that discomfort should be avoided, not explored, that every empty second must be filled, that stillness is useless unless interrupted by noise. But real conversations grow inside those empty seconds. They bloom in pauses, in hesitations, in the soft spaces where two people process each other. When you remove silence from your emotional vocabulary, you remove depth with it. Instead of learning how to open up, the brain learns how to dodge. Instead of practicing vulnerability, it practices interruption. Instead of strengthening connection, it strengthens escape routes. And as this pattern repeats, you begin to notice something strange. People start feeling too intense. Eye contact feels heavy. Emotions feel overwhelming. Personal questions feel invasive. Not because people have changed, but because your brain has grown unused to the weight of real interaction. Scrolling offers the illusion of a life where everything is filtered, controlled, and perfectly timed. Real humans don't come with filters. They come with stories, trauma, joy, contradictions. And your brain, conditioned by the rapid-fire stability of digital feeds, starts rejecting the unpredictability of human truth. This is why conversations feel draining. Your mind is trying to use sprint muscles for a marathon. It's built for rapid stimulation now, not emotional endurance. And slowly, without choosing it, you become someone who is always half present. Someone who listens with their ears, but responds with their eyes elsewhere. Someone who feels detached even in moments meant to feel alive. That's the real cost of scrolling. It doesn't just distract you from people. It disconnects you from the version of yourself capable of loving them. Number 3. Shopping online for emotional comfort. Imagine this. You're sitting with someone who genuinely wants to talk to you. Their words are warm, their eyes searching, their presence real. But in the background of your mind, there's a quiet pulse, an itch, a tug, a digital whisper. Your phone is calling you, not loudly, not urgently, just enough to split your attention in half, and in that tiny fracture, the conversation loses its soul. This is the hidden rewiring nobody warns you about. Your brain is being trained to split itself, to never give anything or anyone your full presence. Every scroll teaches you micro-distraction, micro-avoidance, micro-abandonment. You don't just check your phone, you check out of the moment. And slowly, your brain forgets how to be fully in anything. Real conversations demand immersion. They need your emotional bandwidth. But scrolling creates a version of you that is constantly fragmented, never fully here, never fully gone. It builds a mind that's always scanning for the next hit of novelty, even while someone is pouring their heart out in front of you. And here's where it becomes dangerous. Your brain starts believing that connection should feel as stimulating as your feed, that humans should entertain you as fast as content does, that emotions should unfold in seconds instead of minutes. When they don't, and they never do, you feel bored, irritated, restless, as if the person in front of you is too slow for the pace your brain now craves. This is how scrolling quietly sabotages relationships, not with toxicity, but with impatience, not with conflict, but with indifference. You start craving intensity instead of intimacy, highlights instead of honesty, instant reactions instead of real responses. And one day you realize the most painful truth. You haven't lost interest in people. Your brain has lost the capacity to engage with them deeply. Because the skills required to hold a conversation were slowly replaced by the skills required to scroll. Number 2. Over-caffeinating to push through fatigue. There's a truth we rarely admit. Every conversation shapes us. Every shared laugh, every disagreement, every vulnerable confession. It all chisels something inside the brain. Humans evolve through interaction, but when scrolling replaces conversation, that evolution pauses. You stay mentally busy but emotionally stagnant, as if your inner world is running on a treadmill, moving fast but going nowhere. Scrolling gives you an endless river of other people's thoughts, but the irony is brutal. The more you consume them, the less you understand your own. Conversations force clarity. They make you articulate what you believe, what you fear, what you desire. They reveal blind spots, they challenge you, but scrolling gives you none of that. It gives you noise without direction, opinions without dialogue, stimulation without substance. And slowly, your brain loses the ability to organize your inner world. You feel things strongly but can't explain them. You want connection but freeze when it appears. You crave understanding but don't have the patience to build it. This confusion doesn't happen suddenly. It's a quiet internal erosion, a fading of emotional vocabulary, a shrinking of cognitive nuance. Real conversation sharpens thought. Scrolling blurs it. Real presence grounds you. Scrolling scatters you. Real humans reflect your identity. Scrolling replaces it with fragments. And there's another hidden cost. Without conversations, you lose the ability to witness yourself through someone else's eyes. You lose the grounding effect of being mirrored. You drift into mental isolation even when surrounded by people. It's not loneliness caused by lack of company. It's loneliness caused by lack of engagement. Your brain becomes a room with no windows. You see everything except yourself. That is the deepest rewiring of all. Not losing social skills, not losing focus, but losing the ability to understand who you are outside the screen. Number 1. Escaping into fantasy instead of facing problems. There comes a moment, usually late at night, when the noise finally stops. The feed slows down, the world quiets, the room darkens, and you're left alone with a truth you've been avoiding. For hours, you've interacted with everything except yourself. That's the invisible damage scrolling does. It doesn't just replace conversations with others, it replaces conversations with you. In real interactions, people reflect your inner world back to you. Their questions make you think. Their reactions make you adjust. Their presence makes you aware of your own presence. But scrolling offers none of that. It offers endless input but zero introspection. You consume, but never integrate, never reflect, never digest. And the brain, without reflection, begins to hollow out emotionally. You start feeling disconnected, but you can't explain why. You feel mentally full, but emotionally empty. Stimulated, but not understood. Busy, but not alive. This is the final stage of rewiring, the quiet erosion of inner dialogue. Without real conversations, your identity becomes fragmented, scattered across pixels, influenced by strangers who don't even know your name. You start comparing your life to curated illusions. You start measuring your worth against people you've never met. You start feeling inadequate in a life you haven't even fully lived. Real conversations pull you back into yourself. Scrolling pulls you out of yourself. And the more time you spend outside, the harder it becomes to return. But here's the truth most people don't realize until it's too late. Your brain doesn't just adapt to what you do, it becomes what you repeat. And if you repeat disconnection long enough, you become disconnected. Not by choice, by habit, by rewiring, by surrendering your mind to something that never deserved that power. Scrolling isn't stealing your relationships, it's stealing the version of you that those relationships needed.